everyone, welcome back to the Vintage Sewing Machine Garage. Making a video for you folks today, and the video is focused on another sewing attachment. This is the Singer adjustable zigzag attachment, and it is product number 121706. Now this is different than the more commonly seen Singer ZigZagger that many of you may know of. It's the one that looks like, this is the blind stitch attachment I made the video of. And the Singer ZigZagger, it doesn't look exactly like this. There were some that resemble this. There were others that have pattern cams that you can insert. And all of this, of course, was designed to help people with overcast stitching, or overlocking, as we sometimes we use the term overlocking when we're talking about Sergers. But this again was something that was important because whether you were doing a blind stitch or maybe you had to reinforce a corner on some item you were sewing, you had to do that by hand unless you had an attachment. Now later in the vintage era, once we get into the 1950s and 60s, the Necke company brings zigzag to domestic machines. And by the way, zigzag was not a brand new idea. It had been in industrial machines for a long time, as had blind stitch capability. But for domestic sewing machines, things like zigzag and blind stitch and the other optional stitches, those would really come into being in the 1950s. And then later in the 60s, you see more and more features put into sewing machines. Well, the Singer company did not have a zigzag, or certainly not a successful zigzag, around 1950 when this 201 that you see in the background, I'll be showing it doing its regular stitching soon in the video. It's about ready to be completed and have a new owner. But I took this opportunity because of my inventory is a little bit low on sewing machines at the moment. I wanted to make some videos on these attachments. I did one on the blind stitch attachment I was showing you all. Most of these attachments for Singers are pretty common. It's very unusual that you come across any that are rare. I've had a few recently. But this one, I don't know if it's rare. I don't see it as often. They sell for more when you see them available. And they are, again, one of the a number of designs that were attempted and created by the Singer company or its supplier. This is the original user manual. I love the old manuals. Many manuals can be found online, but this one is, of course, the original, and it tells you how to operate it and how to get the most out of it. Fairly well illustrated. Not all the vintage ones are. One of the things to note here is I was reading this, and it says this has to do with attaching the attachment to the presser bar, which I've already done, and I've got the little arm in place here. It says this is why you should always read the directions on anything, right? It says attachment shank which fits onto the presser bar in place of the regular presser foot. Use the upper hole on 101 class machines. Use the lower hole on all other machines. And I'm going to point to this. I finally have something to point with here. If you look in the illustration, it'll be easier to see than what I've actually got. I've got the thing installed right now on the 201 here. So I'm going to zoom in here and let you guys see this. Many of you know that whenever you go to install anything on a sewing machine, whether it's just straight stitch foot like this one, this is the straight stitch foot for the 201 here that I've removed because I've got the attachment installed. And normally you see one place to put the thumb screw to attach it to the presser bar. Well, it was interesting because as I was looking at this and reading, apparently there's a dual set of places where you can insert the hole. So if you're going to use a Singer 101, you would use the upper hole to attach the machine. For all others, and I'm including this with the 201, you use the lower one right here. Which is interesting. I'm not used to seeing that. I assume it had something to do with the specifications of the machines and how the height and the settings were presumably you had to do it that way or it wouldn't work on the 101. So, but it's kind of interesting. They made it flexible so you could use both. So what you're seeing here, and this is on the right side of my pressure bar. You can see the little tail of it here. This, of course, is the arm that attaches to the shaft of the needle clamp. And let's go ahead and move this around here so you guys can see. I did the blind stitch attachment video in the evening with a lot of lights, but I just love natural light, and I decided to wait until today. So you can see here on this side, the device is fairly complex. It's similar to the embroidery attachments that you've seen. This had to have been a fairly costly thing to produce for Singer compared to just a straight stitch foot, right? But the quality is wonderful. There's an adjustment in the back here. It looks like a thumb screw, but it's actually, well, it is in a way. Here you see the arm where I've attached it to, this is the hub or the shaft of the needle clamp, and here's of course your thumb screw for the needle when you're installing or removing a needle. And then we will slide over here to the left side, and you guys can see this little device here. When it is closed, when it's all the way over, you can't zigzag, so you unlock it by moving this little piece. And it is installed. I've just got some lightweight cotton here right now just to show you guys how she works. And I will do my best not to smack into my own camera here, guys. I'm a tall person, and sewing machines were designed for people to be right up to them, using them, not filming. So I'm going to do my best with that. And let's see how she works. What you'll find is, of course, is that zigzag attachments and blind stitch attachments are kind of cousins of each other. The main difference is that the blind stitch sews in a straight stitch and then intermittently will hop over and create a zigzag so that you can lock in your hems. Blind stitching was often used for hemming. But this zigzag or overlocking stitch, this was Singer's answer because they didn't have the zigzag that the Necky had. And in fact, Singer would not really introduce large-scale zigzag models into production for a few more years. But let's see how she does. Make sure I've got my machine plugged in here. Oh, that's one way to test. I do not. Alright, now one thing I have learned, and I've learned this with the blind stitcher, is you want to pay attention to how you're feeding the fabric. So the fabric is moving back, right? But it's also moving sideways as well. When I was making the video on the blind stitcher, I had a white thread because I didn't know what color fabric I was going to use, and I swapped that out because it's awfully difficult to see stitches when the thread and the fabric are the same color. I try hard not to do that, and that was just kind of how the blind stitcher worked out. So if you look closely, you will see that, of course, the needle doesn't move from side to side. What this device is doing is it's moving the fabric, right? It's sort of moving the fabric side to side as it feeds. Now, one of the things you want to be aware of, and you'll notice this machine has beautiful straight lock stitches. Now, I'm not a sewer, so I did not keep my fabric perfectly aligned, and you can see where my zigzagging went off course there. But you can see also where it basically is overlocking or stitching over that folded, that's just a folded seam I did there on the fabric. Now another thing to notice is that when you are feeding the fabric, it's really important that you have your presser bar tension. We'll zoom up here so you can see what I'm talking about. On this machine it's adjusted here. if you want to make those adjustments in such a way that your fabric is going to feed properly. Because if it doesn't, you may get a variation in how long the stitch is, okay? And let me show you this, right? So you can see here, this is the long stitch on this Singer 201, and it's zigzagging along, and all of a sudden the stitches got shorter, okay? You can see this right here. The reason the stitches got shorter is not the machine's fault, and it's not the ZigZagger's fault. It's the user, in this case my fault, because again, I'm not feeding the fabric as I would, and I'm not a trained sewer, so I wanted to kind of point that out. And when you get these, if you ever play with these attachments, the attachments are made with the same quality that the machines were. And so it's rather interesting to have these and to try them out. And I would encourage any of you who are interested to do that very thing. Try out using these things, and you have to kind of, there's a learning curve with them. In fact, I don't think I've ever used this style of ZigZagger. I've used the other kind with the other style that has the cams, the pattern cams, and they work a little differently. So anyway, that is the ZigZagger and how she forms that zigzag stitch. If any of you have toyed with or used zigzag attachments or any other attachments that you had to learn on, let me know what you think. Let me know if you like how they work. They're very durable, they're very well made, but again, and I have another theory here, which is that, let's zoom out just a bit. I think that, and by the way, I'll take this off and you guys can see how I kind of got it installed in the first place. One of my theories is that many of these attachments that I have gotten they have hardly any wear, and some of them even look like they were never used. And I wonder if it's because there's a learning curve to using these attachments. Many of you, I've seen people, doing videos and they're masters with them and they create wonderful results. But I don't know how much patience people had back in the day. It's possible they went in, they bought a new machine and they said, oh, look at this new attachment, look at all the things you could do. And perhaps the salespeople were trained in how to use them and make them look just like a breeze to use. And I think they are once you've had practice. But I think some people got them and maybe they felt bad because they had paid so much money for these attachments when they were new, and they probably did not ever master how to use them, and they put them away. Because I noticed that with a lot of the extra fancy accessories and attachments. And I don't really blame the attachments. I think people just didn't have the patience. They were busy, they had little young children they were trying to make clothes for, and they were doing the best they could. But anyway, I'm loosening the set screw here, and got that. Now, if you notice, when I take this off, right, notice that the arm is the same level as the thumb screw for the needle, right? So just a little hint, guys, when you're trying to install this, any accessory that uses the needle clamp as a place to sort of allow it to, it's providing the motion that goes up and down that helps this device work. When I went to install it, oh, by the way, I'll show you. Here's the little double hole option for this thing. It's really cool. They were making it flexible because no one was going to trade in their 101 just because they wanted to use this. No way. Those machines were too expensive. So Singer was trying to make sure that everyone could be sold one of these. So watch what I'm doing. I'm coming in. You kind of come in at an angle, right? And you've got the shank of this device here, but you want to hold this arm right here. Kind of keep it up, all right? You don't want it to be too high or too low. Try to keep it up, and here we've got the shank, and notice I'm coming in right at the same level. Think of this as, this little arm's trying to bite down on the needle clamp. If you will come in, and before you try it, make sure that the arm is adjusted, and that way when you come in at this, I'm coming in at like 11 o'clock, okay? So from 11 o'clock I come in, and notice the arm is ready to engage here. If this thing is way down here or up here, you're gonna be wrestling with it and it's not gonna work, and you'll be frustrated. So come in at this angle and boom, I'm ready to put the set screw in. So there you go, folks. Something I rarely do, which is make videos of attachments. But there is a world of these attachments. Those that are more rare, people collect. Some people collect them because they're rare. Some people like to use them. And in either way, there is a demand for these. And there were lots of them out there, lots of different styles. Trying to remember if I did one on a Singer buttonhole, or if not, I should do that sometime. Anyway, I appreciate you all watching. Thank you. And if you have any thing to share on your own experience with these attachments, some of you love using them, some of you don't. Some of you collect them anyway because they're really cool little parts of sewing machine history. So there you go, folks. Stay tuned for the next video. I am hoping to have more machine videos coming up soon. Take care.